Speaking out against my abuser ruined my life, and I'd like to talk to you about it. I'm gonna be reading something I wrote. It's not particularly well written, but I just needed to collect my thoughts. Whether you know who I am or not, I ask you to please listen to my story. If you do recognize me, then you haven't heard from me in a couple of years, and that's because I was effectively run off the internet. You also may have heard that I admitted to lying or that it was proven that I lied. Neither are true. Speaking out against my abuser ruined my life. Here's how we got to that point. During the Me Too movement, I chose to speak out against a former friend who had essayed me. I was young, naive, and could never imagine how this would end up affecting my life. I believed that as long as I told the truth, things would turn out all right. I was very wrong. After my initial statement, describing in detail what happened, my abuser issued a statement in response. She used the sentence, "She never said no to what we chose to do together." While I did say no, in many different ways, this sentence was actually quite validating for me to hear. She clearly didn't understand how consent works, and she admitted that something took place between us. I wish it ended there. I made the mistake of doing an interview with Daily Mail. While being interviewed, they asked for more specific details, like when the incident took place. It'd been around 2 years prior, so I didn't remember the exact date. What I did remember was a picture I took the next day. I went back in my camera roll, found the picture, and told them the day of the incident was the day before. Unfortunately, I was wrong. The picture in my camera roll appeared multiple times. I can't explain why. When the interview came out, her fans went back in her posts to that date to find that we were in different states. If you've never heard my story before, you might at this point wonder, why would that matter? She admitted something between you took place in her statement. I agree, and this is just one of the parts that drives me crazy. After this discovery, she released a second statement, in which she thanks her fans for researching the timeline and analyzing past Instagram posts which reveal my false statements. Unfortunately, this was enough for 99% of her fans to take what she said as truth and deem me a liar. The complete contradiction of her statements meant nothing. The events after this are so much and so overwhelming it's hard for me to recount. She ended up releasing essentially a diss track about me, with lyrics perpetuating the idea that I lied about all of this for fame. I was a small musician at the time, and after speaking out, gained tens of thousands of followers. While there were some supporters, the majority of the followers were people who actively hated me. I suddenly had thousands of hate accounts dedicated to me, thousands of dislikes and negative comments on all of my music, and completely ridiculous fabricated stories of me being posted online. I really hoped it would die out and people who liked me would stick around and I'd be able to move on with my career, but it never died. Anything I attempted to do was infected with this story. Googling me results in many first-page results calling me a liar. The people who hated me took it upon themselves to ruin every opportunity for me. Partnerships with brands, modeling opportunities, they were all flooded with comments saying I lied about SA. In addition to this, my home address, phone number, and family's phone numbers were all leaked. I became so discouraged with my own music career, I essentially stopped. I started doing SW in an attempt to regain some autonomy, but that was taken from me as well when people who hated me hacked the account. I was just trying to move on. My adult content was being spread and mocked by the people who hated me. Every single one of my social media accounts was hacked, including my email. The only thing they didn't get into was my bank account. I was given the classic fuck the haters advice, but until you're bombarded with the amount that I had to endure, you really can't imagine how it would affect you. It was just so much louder than any amount of support I was receiving. As you can imagine, my mental health was and is majorly affected by this situation. And while I wish I was the type of person with the confidence to say fuck the haters and stick it out, I'm just not. I'm sensitive and not self-confident and never have been. And this made it so much worse. It got to the point where I could no longer put up with the abuse. Holding onto this public image was no longer worth the pain, and I deactivated all of my public accounts. In doing this, I also saw this as completely giving up on being a musician. I couldn't put myself through the public scrutiny anymore. So that's where I've been the past couple of years, in private. It was a huge relief to no longer be bombarded with the amount of hate I was receiving every day, but now I'm stuck with the after effects. I imagine every day the life that I could have lived if this all hadn't happened. Would I be the musician I always wanted to be? It's kept me in a complete freeze state. I won't go into too much detail about how much I've been suffering the past couple of years. Frankly, it's embarrassing. I wish I could move on, but I've never wanted things to be over more than I have now. I've been in partial hospitalization programs and attempted to regain any semblance of confidence and hope for my life, but I can't shake that this is the wrong timeline for me. I didn't do anything wrong. I spoke the truth. If you're familiar with my story, you may have also heard that I admitted to lying, and I can assure you that never happened. There were photoshopped images spread around of a confession that never happened because I have nothing to confess. I never lied. You may have also heard that I accused other celebrities of this, which I can promise you never happened either. There's so many other terrible things that people have made up about me that I'm not going to dissect and defend right now. But I was successfully gaslit into thinking I was a bad person who deserved this. I'm so scared to speak out about this again. There's a high possibility that I won't receive any support from this, and people who hate me will target me again, and I go back into hiding. I ask that if you are someone who is under the impression that I lied about this, to please hear me out. Please think about her contradicting statements. Please realize that there's no one on earth who knows what happened that night besides me and her, and even the smallest possibility that I could be telling the truth should be enough for you to not want to risk ruining an innocent person's life in this way. I'm completely exhausted from begging people to believe me for years now. I'm not sure what I'm hoping will come from this. It's gotten to be quite humiliating to beg people to care. But if you haven't heard my story before, thank you for hearing me, and I could really use your help in rewriting the false narrative of who I am and what happened to me.